Welcome to season 2, episode 3. And I am sitting down with Kyle, who was my softball coach. He ran my softball team.
Yeah.
And the reason why I have Kyle on the show is because Kyle is pretty much the polar opposite of me. I wasn't looking for someone to get on this show and talk about coronavirus. That was Cardi B. Coronavirus. You didn't hear that song, bro?
I have not, no.
What? You love the hippity hop. I thought you'd well, look for it later. It's amazing.
I've been sheltering. I've been isolating. I don't know what you want me to tell you.
All the more reason why you should see it. Anyway, so Kyle is a polar opposite for me. We're going to be talking about coronavirus and people's view on coronavirus, and his is completely different from mine. I didn't just want to have two people on talking about the same thing. Someone just sitting there patting me on the back saying like, yeah, Jay is my cheerleader. I wanted someone that could challenge me, and then someone that is a complete contrast for me as well. Kyle has 3 kids. He's married, and you were telling me that both you and your wife are being compensated through work, correct?
Yes, we are one of the lucky few that are being taken care of for work. Yeah, we can work from home.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I'm single. I'm lonely. I cry into my hands at night, and I'm waiting for CERB. That's no one's taking care of me whatsoever. We'll have to see how this thing pans out. But I mean, I'll take the money if I can get it. That's for sure. So as you can see, he has a family man. I'm a single dude. He's taken care of through his work. I'm relying a little bit on a handout as I continue to try to innovate, build, do more of these podcasts, and see where I can go. Right. This is definitely a time of a lot of fear and uncertainty. At the same time, a lot of opportunity for people to innovate and pivot, etc. Now,
Agreed.
I am an entrepreneur. You are not. I'm trying to just get across all the differences here, the contrast, right? You're black, I'm white, all that kind of stuff. Now, what I want to get into right off the top, and this is kind of what sparked us having this podcast today. And it was the announcement by the city of Ottawa that everything now until June 30th is pretty much going to stay the same as it is right now. No large gatherings. Yeah. So that means, I guess, still practicing social distancing. We can't have groups larger than 5. Parks are closed, which is bananas to me. I still don't get that one. How do you stand in regards to the measures that were taken today?
We clearly have some different views, so I'll just go right into my opinion. Like, I agree. I think that the state hasn't changed. Nothing's changed. There's still cases coming. There's been no change. So we got to implement the next steps, whatever the next step is. And if the next step is extending, prohibiting gatherings, then do it. If the next step is to continue to social distance, then keep doing it. Shutting parks. If people are continuing to gather and do these things, like, there's lots of stuff I do with my kids. Just before I joined you here, I was out on the road with them. They were on their bikes. My 2-year-old son was learning how to use a push car. Like, I'm still doing these activities. I don't need, if the city believes it's a good idea to shut these communal places down to avoid social contact with others, to just do that. Go outside, do something on your street. Like, I have no qualms with that whatsoever.
And I agree too. And I'm going to allude to why we started off with this topic in just a little bit. I have no problem with the social distancing. As we have discussed before, you're much more concerned about the virus and its potency than I am. Yeah. Now, let me be clear. I want to say this right off the top. I believe that there is a virus, and I believe it's incredibly contagious, and it can be deadly. So before people start shitting all over me in the comments or whatever, I just want to make that very clear. And let me also preface that by saying anyone that's been affected by COVID-19, people that have lost their lives, one life is too much. Okay, but at the same time, we can't save everybody. And I just want to be clear about that. So I'm not insensitive. I'm going to speak freely. I'm going to say a lot of things that a lot of other people out there don't want to say, that aren't considered to be safe, like Kyle here. Okay. And you know
So,
what?
so you mentioned a good comment that kind of just hit home right now, like we can't save everyone, right? And I do agree, but you're mentioning you don't agree with the steps that were taken by the city and stuff so far.
I didn't say that I don't agree.
Sorry, agreed. Social distancing
I
you were a part
agree
of.
with social distancing. I believe that there shouldn't be large groups. I have no problem with what they have put into play here or what they have extended. I think shooting all the way to July 1st is I don't know how they came up with those numbers. I mean, yeah, but I agree with it. I am okay. I am okay with that. I have enough trust that if they're saying that's what we need to do, that is something that I can live with. I guess the problem is, and I'll just jump right into it because I was going to allude to the fact that I made a post today on my Facebook and I shared the fact that we're going to be shut down till June 30th, right? But what I'm incredibly concerned about is our rights as Canadian citizens, right? And so you're along the lines of where this is government taking care of us, right? And making sure that more people don't get sick. And I'm like, that's okay, but we are just this close. We are this close from putting ourselves into a position to where we have no control at all. So you obviously, you're trusting in your government, incredibly trusting.
It is trusting in the government, but I mean, give an example, if you can, of a reason they've given us thus far
You're
in the
making
whole
this real
pandemic,
easy.
that
Okay.
we shouldn't trust the decisions that they're making thus far and who like to come.
Okay, how about this simple one? Like to wear a mask, not to wear a mask. Lot of confusion. We don't need to wear a mask. Now we should be wearing a mask. This mask works. That mask doesn't work. I mean, different articles coming out each and every day. That's not necessarily government. So I'll
Right.
give them a little bit of a break there. But at the end of the day, I mean, if we were to take a look at everything that was happening in government before we got to this situation to where we're dealing with the coronavirus, if you were to ask people, how much do you trust your government? I don't think it would be all that high, right? I mean, they say the two occupations that you can't trust, a lawyer and a politician. And now people are starting to cry for more government intervention, right? And uh, in doing so, giving government more power. Why is someone that you are making fun of, like their hair during the elections, or crapping on liberals, that people that were part of, let's say supporting NDP or the conservatives, and now you're ready to just hand over everything, every freedom and every liberty to the government? I just can't believe people do that so freely. So when I question people, when it came to my post today, is just educate yourself on your rights as a Canadian citizen. It's not to say that I think things have already gone too far. It's to say that you should at least know why maybe you don't have your freedom of speech. Maybe you should know why you're getting ticketed in the parks. Maybe you should know why they can hand out a bunch of fines. And maybe that will just heal some of the confusion. And then at the same time, understand that fine line in between the government taking care of you and the government taking away your civil liberties.
So I believe they've been quite clear on why you're getting fines and why you're getting ticketed and why. I think they've been quite clear. I think they've been quite generous. There was a 2-week period of warnings. There was plenty of publication prior to the warnings even going out that the process was going to begin. And now that it's in place, people are starting to make a deal about it. Like, I mean, you mentioned a comment to me as well earlier that you're an outdoorsy guy, right? You need air. You have beautiful pictures.
Love it.
You post
But
all
I'm
the
afraid
time.
to leave my house because I'm afraid, like, where am I going to get a ticket or where I won't? But continue.
Correct. So it's hard because you mentioned you don't see anyone at these parks. You don't see any
When I'm
gatherings.
driving around, I don't see people out and about when I'm driving around. The streets are
Right.
bare. People are staying inside. They're self-isolating.
Right. So when I'm on the streets, or when I'm going to, pick up the mail, or when I'm coming home from groceries, I do see gatherings in our neighborhood. And it's unfortunate because, you know, it's the some ruin it for all type mentality, which is terrible, but it's what it is. You see these postings on social media of people, oh, let's go to the beach and let's do all this stuff, making these challenges of,
We can take these
like,
extremes, sure, but look, I understand exponential growth potential. I used to work in MLM, right? And that's how the model works. I talk to 3 people, you talk to 3 people, they talk to 3 people, everyone makes money. It's just that easy, right? But
yeah.
that's not necessarily how it happens. I sign up Kyle, Kyle jumps on my team, and Kyle doesn't make a single phone call, and Kyle makes no money, right?
Right.
It's this assumption that there's 3 people that are standing within 6 feet of one another that are having a conversation, and if there's one person that's infected, well, now all 3 of those people are infected and they're a danger to society. I would rather see groups of 3, 4, 5 all over the place outside enjoying themselves, getting vitamin D in a healthy environment, opposed to anybody going to the grocery store where people
Agreed.
are breathing on shit, where they have to wait in lines, to where they're touching produce that other people touched. Like, that's disgusting, right?
But you have the freedom to do both. You have the freedom to do both. No
No,
one's
I
taking.
don't have the freedom to do that anymore.
Why? I was just outside
Not the
on.
way I choose. But okay, and fair enough.
There's your
There,
point. Not the
there
way you
are
choose,
there are
and
a
I
lot
agree
of
with you.
different options for people out there. Okay, but I'm saying, like, there's a path that I walk every day out here. And I remember there was a day a couple of weeks back before things really fucking hit the fan that I went downtown for a walk, and there were less people that I was walking by downtown than I walked by on my path by my home. Like, there's
Yeah.
no sweet science to this at all. And I agree. Like, listen, the rules are in place now. Okay. And I'm not saying that I have a problem with the rules. Let me be clear. Rules are rules, and we're doing our best right now to just try to kick this thing in the ass. Fair. Okay. And for the person that takes their dog to the park and they're not supposed to be taking their dog to the park and they get a $800 fine, they deserve that fine. It sucks. We know the rules. My post was about understanding your civil liberties. And it's amazing how people got into an uproar about it, because all they want to do is talk about the fear element of it, right? People are scared. You don't want people going to parks because you're scared it's going to make it worse for everybody else. You don't want people, like, I mean, so, and I understand the person that, the individual that got a ticket for having the dog there, they were the only person there, but the reason why it's closed is so a whole bunch of other people don't go there. My point is the slippery slope. So when I say for people to understand their rights and do some research, why would that make anybody angry?
I personally was confused because there was one comment that at least got my attention and my engagement, where you spoke with an ex-police officer.
Yes.
And you made a comment that was, if anyone should understand and support this post, please correct my wording if I mistook anything. I only read it one time. So,
Right.
if anyone should be in favor of this post, it should be you. And to be fair, it was the quite opposite. He had very similar views to myself. I think that I think thinking that this is impacting civil rights and liberties at this point, I think that's a touch.
No, that it can. You keep on missing it. Everyone keeps on jumping to the next level. That's not what I said. I said that people should know their own civil liberties. It's not to say that what's happening right now isn't a legitimate enough reason. I don't have to like it. I don't have to agree with it. I'm saying, how close are we to where people that cry for a lockdown, they don't understand that what they're doing is that they're basically asking for martial law. And once martial law goes into effect, they need to understand, and if they did the research, that everything is out of your control. You no longer decide whether or not you want to take 3 steps outside your front porch.
Mm-hmm.
You may not have the opportunity to go get groceries when you want. You may not be able to pass your kids back and forth if you're separated, if you have custody. Once that happens, martial law. And could martial law go on for just a month to clear this up? Sure. Am I going to go a little bit extreme? Fine, I'll go a little bit extreme. Joe Rogan explored this on one of his podcasts. Because once martial law is initiated, there's nothing to say that it has to go away. And then anything that is law that is implemented due to martial law can stay. That's how a lot of taxes come to fruition. So just before you cry for a lockdown, before you cry for martial law, whether you know what it is or whether you don't, is just to do the research. So I've done my research. So I'm very uncomfortable with a lockdown. I guarantee you most people that are comfortable with a lockdown or think it's a good idea really don't understand what they're talking about. That's my point.
So I'll be transparent. We're having a good conversation, and I like it. I've done little to no research on martial law. I know high level Cole's notes of the general rules. I don't know the in depth. I think that the potential. I'll make sure the word gets used. I think that your concerns of the potential are very extreme. Like, yes. I think that that if we go into martial law, you're expecting some communist outcome, which is nowhere in the cards. Like, Canada is not that, like,
okay.
I just don't.
This then.
Yeah.
If there is a one, and people are saying this, so there's a 1 in a million chance that your kid's going to die from coronavirus, will you do everything in your power to keep that kid safe or your child safe?
Of course I would.
Okay. So in regards to my freedoms and the way of life that we know, even if there's a small chance, if we just step that much closer to where the way of life that we're living right now never goes back to be the same, do I not have the same right to be concerned?
You do. Now, you having that right and those concerns and those views as a single, you live alone and
lonely guy. Okay, yeah, rub it in. You're a lonely guy.
You're you, right? If you're telling, so if you say you're infected, you're one of the unfortunate ones that ended up with this virus, and the rules were not in effect, but you knew the risks of going out and the impacts that could occur. Would you still run your daily routine, daily life, because you had concerns of your civil liberties?
Now, listen, I have an older father. My mother passed away 3 years ago. I often think, would I visit her right now if this thing was out there? And I would want to. Maybe I just quarantine myself for 14 days and I go see her, right? I don't have to be locked up for a month or 2 months or whatever. I mean, there's ways to prepare for something like that. A lot of people don't seem to think that way. It's definitely not worth going out there and taking the risk. I understand that, right? At the same time, like when people talk about me and what I'm doing, or if I go out to the grocery store, that's just as likely for me to pick up a virus and still be able to transmit it to someone that I love or somebody that like like there's a video that circulates in regards to people. This lady, she's trying to protect herself from a virus. She's wearing gloves, and how many different times that she touches something to where she would have transmitted the virus or whatever it might be, or germs, right? It's near impossible. So the only way that we can do this, I mean, as long as there's homeless people on the street, as long as there are people that are going to work every day, would to be to implement a full lockdown. And like that, to me, it just can't be that way. Like, why not just quarantine all the old people that we're concerned about and then just get back to our daily lives, since the vast majority of people are not going to be affected by this virus?
Because they did that in a nursing home with one of them, and then 15 or 16 others of it all contracted it at one time. Like, and it's like, it's,
but
you know,
people are going to die from this. Like, I don't
yes.
want to come across as an insensitive prick, but people are going to die from this. Like,
But why not limit it?
There are
Why not?
1,200 children, since we're talking about kids, your kids and keeping them safe. 1,200 kids die every day under the age of 5 from malaria. Okay? Malaria is cured with a $3 pill. And like, we're not shutting down these countries that are ravaged with malaria. HIV kills 1 million. And I don't want to go on this all day and make comparisons, because a life lost, no matter what it's due to, is tragic. But when we're taking the steps that are being taken right now for something that we've already been given the numbers, 3,000 on the low end to 15,000 on the high end. So it's saying that, we could be under 3,000. We could potentially be over 15,000. But those numbers compared to other numbers, that's just not, like, I don't understand why everything is stopping here. And even with the numbers globally, I can't understand why this is shutting down the world. It concerns me. People are so fearful right now, is that we're not even thinking about the economic impact. And many times when I mention that, people will say, well, it's health or finances. Well, they're about to come together, because there's going to be parents that can't feed their kids, right? That can't shelter their kids, that can't pay the electricity, that won't have the money to pay for their kids to get the proper care. We just happen to have free health care.
But that's a different topic, right? Because those are steps being implemented by the same government that you're concerned about for deferrals of mortgage payments and I don't want to get into the topic of all the strings and whatever. I'm just saying the efforts that they've displayed. So, deferring the mortgage payments, and no person is getting like an eviction lock, like all this stuff that they're putting in place. Like, it's either that or those kids go to the daycare. Like my youngest son, when he was first, I don't know, a year old, we had him in a daycare locally that was close to my workplace. And for the first, I don't know, it seemed like every time he would get over something, he would be sick with a new virus at this daycare. As soon as he was taken out of the daycare and into my mom's care, he didn't get sick anymore. So just the ease of transition in places like that, and then all the parents go to pick up the children, and then just the like the steps, it's just it's not like nothing's been like this before. No one in any one of our lifetimes has seen anything like this before. So everyone can criticize any steps being taken. It's just this is just a tough one, Jay. It's a tough one, and
it is.
I'm glad there's folks like you that are around to have these healthy conversations about it.
Right. It's great. Go ahead, please.
In times like this, right? Like, and I mentioned this to you the other day. It's like, I haven't left my home essentially since March 13th. Mm-hmm. My mom called me on Friday night around 10 p.m. and my dad had fallen. And for the first time in my life, I actually my brain was registering if it was okay to leave my home to go and help them. Mm-hmm. And it was a weird feeling. And I called my sister, spoke with her about it. I'm like, what do you think? And she's just like, well, you clearly have to go, right? And I'm like, I know that's the right decision. I just, for some reason, needed someone in the same spot as me to reassure me of that,
Right. And I'm glad you shared that story, because but that just goes to show you, like, the level of fear. Yeah. And that's not a bad, I'm not saying that's.
And let me be clear too. The fear was not of me acquiring, right? The fear is of me somehow doing something that would.
True. But
and then me visiting my elderly.
It's fear nonetheless.
Yep.
Right. So number one, fear just makes you question, like the rational. The rational thing is, like, you just got to help your parents, right? And at the same time, you're thinking, well, if I help my parents, am I really helping my parents because I could do something else to them, right, through coronavirus?
Yeah.
But the fear And the paranoia is so high right now, that scares me more than the virus. And let's go back a couple of weeks ago to where you couldn't find a roll of fucking toilet paper. Like, it's laughable, right?
Yeah, it is.
It's absolutely laughable. But at the same time, when people are thinking so irrationally to where they're going out and getting fucking toilet paper instead of buying food, what is going on?
By the pallets, yeah.
People aren't buying food; they're buying toilet paper. Like, I have the same. Like, I've not gone out to get toilet paper once. Like, I don't know what people are doing, what they're eating, how much toilet paper they're using when they're wiping, but that's the conspiracy. Like,
I'll tell you one thing. I'll blow the whistle on this one. When you're not using your employer's toilet paper for 50% of the day, it starts to deplete. I will tell you that as a fact. All right.
Fair enough.
The secret's out. Sorry, everyone.
Right. I'm telling people, like, if everything goes to shit, people need to diversify. You got to go get your precious metals. You got to get some cryptocurrency and toilet paper. You got to make sure you got that toilet paper, baby.
Cardboard rolls. Yeah, that's right. It, man. Just roll it off.
But people are really scared. So number one, we're being told that this is something that can compromise people that have a bad immune system. Well, what's awful for your immune system? Stress, confusion, fear, right? And we're constantly jamming it down each other's throats. I don't like news, but news, they print the stories. We're the shitheads sharing this stuff. And whether it be legitimate or not, and there's a lot of fake news going out there, and I'm not even going to talk about the news outlets just yet, which are owned by the same people. It's like 6 major corporations. So I don't trust my news from those sources. But what's even worse is there was a party, for instance, that happened in Brampton 6 years ago, right? It was a house party. And people are sharing this online like this party happened on Friday and saying these COVIDiots. That's the big term now because that's positive in construction and constructive, right? That's how easy it is to share fake news, right? I saw the same thing with a bunch of cyclists in New York, and people are posting it like it happened right now. And then people posting pictures of gatherings online. Like, it's not constructive in any way, shape, or form. And again, it's perpetuating this fear. And when people are scared, they're irrational to where I can make a post just talking about people being aware of their rights, and automatically it just goes towards fear.
But you knew when you posted that it was that there was intent behind it. That's not a standard.
I thought people were going to give it a whole bunch of likes and say, like, yeah, you know what? We absolutely have to watch our Constitution. I can go with the government so far, and I can give them high fives and good job. I mean, I really don't feel either which way about it to how it's been handled to this point. To be really transparent with you, Trudeau, do I think he's done a decent job? Sure. Ford seems to be a pretty stand-up guy. I don't follow the politics.
Oh, he's shown some good light, that guy. That's a different talk. I'm not going to get in it, but
right. Sure.
He's in my books.
Listen, like, I'm neutral that way, right? I'm saying again that, sure, this is where we are right now, but this is where it looks like we might be heading. And that has been said by Trudeau himself. Reporters have been asking these questions, and he's kind of been pushing it to the side. Right? Not to mention, he also went for like a big spending grab a couple of weeks back, right. And the MPs, and they're giving themselves a raise. The carbon tax is going ahead. Like, all these weird things. There's just a lot of people that are asking themselves a couple of questions. Like, they're scratching their head and saying, like, it doesn't make sense. And I'm like, well, if it doesn't make sense, then maybe it's time that you start exploring exactly what's happening here. And there's definitely the people like you that are pretty straight and narrow. And then there's the tinfoil people. And I'm somewhere right in the middle. I'll just say it. Like, I'm right in the middle. I'm very open to information. And unfortunately, there's a lot of serious tinfoil people that are sharing information that really kind of poops on the cause. Then there are people that are way too extreme. Look at me, boy. There's a lot of people that are too extreme on the conservative side of things. Were you actually making a text while I was having a podcast with you?
No,
Okay,
I'm
I'm kidding.
bringing your post up so I can actually take some quotes from it on
I'm
to
messing with
be
you. I'm
honest with
messing
you.
with you.
Yeah.
Right. And then there is just like, this large gray area. And I wish that both parties, in regards to the extremes on both sides, would just try to do a little bit better of empathizing for one another so there can be a little bit more reason opposed to this shutting down of views on both sides.
So what does that look like to you then? What does that look like to you then, empathizing on both sides?
I definitely have strong views, but I empathize with the fact that there are people out there with more to lose than I do. There was a post in the Barhaven forum site on Facebook, whatever,
Sure.
Barhaven, this and that community place. And there was this one lady that was really upset with the kids that are playing at the park, et cetera, et cetera. And my post was like, listen, I am a single guy. I could tell that through her profile because I creeped it a little bit that she has kids, right? So I'm a single guy. I don't have kids. You're a mother that loves their children more than I could ever imagine, because I've heard this from guys and
Right.
girls alike. There's nothing like the love you'll have for a child, like
Right.
loving
Right.
something more than you love yourself.
Right.
And I distinguish that clearly. And at the same time, yes, you're a parent, but the person that's letting their kids play on that play structure loves their kids a lot more than you can love their kids.
Right.
So if they're okay with it, you should be okay with it. Like, your kids aren't there, so why are you worried about it?
Because maybe my kids will be there in a little bit.
But they
Maybe my
shouldn't
kids
be.
will be.
Just keep them locked inside, brother.
That's what I'm saying though. Like, why? Okay, so what's the topic? Is it the self-policing at the, like, what are you trying, what angle are we taking on this one? This is my question to you. Like,
That's good, and I'm glad that you asked, because it's very easy to get off track
well,
with
yeah,
this
like,
thing, right?
and listen, and a lot of different ones of your topics are covering a lot of different views of it, right? So,
I'm saying that I empathize, right? So, sorry, I should have ended my comment properly. I kind of just I kind of shed it off the bottom. Is that, like, I empathize and I understand their frustration.
yeah,
I can understand their frustration, right? So they have a view that everyone should be staying inside. They shouldn't be going to the park. That's their belief system. Now and they want it to be respected, right? Which is why they're shitting on someone on Facebook.
right,
Now, this parent that has their kid at the park, maybe they're not worried about it. They're healthy people. They're out at the park. They think that it's good for their kids' mental health to be outside and not mess up their schedule so much.
yeah,
Now, respect that belief system, right? Like, if it was like widely being disrespected, I guess maybe I would be a little bit more understanding about the person that's freaking out. But people are not, they're generally not going outside. Like, the
right,
streets are bare. If you're
yeah,
expecting 100% compliance on this, you're ridiculous. Because if you want that, then we need to be a communist fucking country. There are going to be
I,
people that fall outside the numbers, right? Or that fall outside of what it is that you want to see personified. But at the same time, like, these numbers are factored in to the overall estimates that you get. Like, I mean, the 3,000 to 15,000, they know that there's going to be a certain amount of people that don't comply, a law of averages, and they factor that into the numbers. There are going to be people that don't listen.
yeah.
And we have to find a way to get through this with people that don't listen, as long as it's not on a large scale.
But they
There's
did find a way. They're finding them.
sure
They're,
now, okay, I can handle that, and we're at a level that it's still making some people uneasy, but things are happening that are making people realize that we're getting closer to stronger government, right? And that makes some people uncomfortable. So if people can just learn to respect each other's sides, and they don't have to agree with it, right? But when I say, like, look at this article, blah, 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 take 2 seconds, just read the article and educate yourself a little bit more. And for the parents that have a lot more to lose than me, I also understand why they're so concerned, which is why I will practice my social distancing, which is why I will do all the things that are necessary to make sure that other people are safe. I respect that. Now, at the same time, respect my views and quit trying to change me. I'm not saying that other people have to do anything differently. What I was really offering up for people, and anytime that I make a comment, is just to really try to understand what's going on from all sides. And I try to do that every time that I engage somebody, which is why I wanted to have you on this show.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't want to have you on and say, yeah, Jay, you're right. You're the best. You know, you'll challenge me. You have different views. And at the same time, I'm really trying to do my best here. Number one, not to get escalated, because then I just look like an Alex Jones guy. You know, and I'll definitely see a whole bunch of gifs of me wearing the tinfoil hat. But we have to find a way to get through this together. And we need to find a way to be able to do that to where we don't have martial law, to where we don't give government too much power. I guess at the end of the day.
I can see where you're coming from, right? And from a fear, like, but you know, you're saying like this goes to fear as well. Like, to me, it sounds like instead of being scared of the virus, you're scared of the impacts of the virus, right?
Fair.
So
on government, I'm scared of
the potential. What can they do to me now that everyone else, this virus has done this to everyone else? Like, it's a slippery slope, and it's not black and white, it's gray. And you know, like, there's some things, you know, and you brought up a point earlier where it's like the people with outstanding health issues are high risk too, right? Like, my wife just got over pneumonia not too long ago, and she's the one leaving the home going back. Like, it's just, you know, so there's many different factors that are going to contribute to my concerns. And it's like, I think no matter how this gets handled or what gets implemented, there's going to be fears on both sides, no matter what, you know, like virus or impacts, whatever.
Yeah. Guilty.
Yeah.
Guilty. And I do try to spend time in the moment. I do my best, like when it comes to my social media, that I share things that are positive. That I didn't even really talk about the virus in my post in particular, you know, opposed to just, I don't think people looking to their civil liberties is a fear thing, honestly. It's to be wary of. Sure, you know, I'll go that far. Could it incite some fear? I guess so, but the people that disagree with me just think I'm a little bit of a whack job anyways, right? They won't say it. Like, you know, I'd like to think that I'm a pretty positive person. You know, I have a smidge of intellect. I'm a fairly well-spoken person, and the last thing that I want to do is really incite fear in people. What I would like people to do is, you know, when they do post something, and in general, not necessarily all the time, because people want to express their views. And I understand that whether someone posts something that I agree with when it comes to what's happening right now, or I disagree, is that it's coming from a place to where they're wanting to help, right? That they feel a certain way and they just want me to be aware, and they want to help me. They want to help others. It comes from a place of caring and compassion. But
I think that's why you get some pushback too, right? Because you're a big voice. You know, you're active. You're more active than most. You know, you are generally a positive human and have somewhat of like a following of sorts of people that are looking for the same positivity every day, right? So when you're delivering messages that aren't as directly positive as folks are used to seeing, that's when you're going to see your divides, and that's when you're going to see your.
And plus, people are upset right now. Yeah. Everyone's upset.
Easily. Yeah.
Everyone's upset, right? Like, I'm upset that I can't do my things. You're upset that you can't do your things. But I
don't get to see you this summer. I don't get to play ball with you this summer, right? Like, it's
right. I mean, we could talk about the economic fallout from this. I mean, that's a whole other different ball of wax. Like, this is going to affect people in a lot of other different ways. But, you know, again, just to dive into the numbers, like in regards to what we're looking at in regards to people losing their life to this virus, but shutting people into their homes. I mean, the mental health issues that are going to develop from this. Number one, people that have mental health, and how this is going to accelerate. There have already been cases of people taking their lives. Not to mention, apparently, hotlines have gone through the roof like 300%. People just not knowing how to deal. There are people that are this close to already losing their shit that don't necessarily have mental health issues, to where this is going to likely push them over the edge. We can talk about the fact of alcohol sales going through the roof, people self-medicating. Alcohol leads to violent crime. Alcohol leads to violence. Then we can talk about domestic violence, which will surely, come to the surface through all of this. Now listen, and again, for us to be safe, I'll play devil's advocate. For us to be safe, unfortunately, these are some of the things that we will have to endure to be able to flatten the curve, whatever the fuck that means. Because I thought we started this whole thing to make sure that the hospitals weren't overwhelmed. They're not overwhelmed. So I believe we have already started to flatten the curve, because this thing was running rampant for a couple of months and we weren't doing anything about it. And the numbers seem to be okay. And now the numbers are coming out and we seem to be okay. We're now shut into our homes. So the numbers just haven't revealed, I guess, that we have flattened the curve. Unless you were to look at like the doomsday numbers that were projected if we didn't do anything. We're not doing anything, we're doing something. So as far as I'm concerned, the curve has been flattened to some degree, one way or another, but we're still having fear crammed down our throats. I just don't understand how a number like 3,000 still freaks the fuck out of people. I still have a hard time understanding how 15,000 freaks the fuck out of people. I'd love that number to be 0, but that's just not the reality. But when you're telling me there's other places that have like, projections of 100,000 and 200,000, and we're sitting at nowhere even close to that.
But how far are they into it? How far are they into it compared to us?
But I love that you said that, because we used to have these things like, look where Italy was at this point, and look where China was. And then we never got there. We had more cases than they did at one point, and like our deaths are still nowhere close. And they're not projected to go anywhere close either. Could it be because we took stronger measures? Sure. But that level of fear isn't necessary. Like when anyone wants to talk to me about Europe right now, I don't want to listen to it, because that's done and over with. We're not Europe. No. And you want to talk to me about China, like the people that are poor in China. I'm glad that we got onto this. How they live. Number one, Italy, old. Okay. China, old. Okay. Italy,
overpopulated.
Italy, they kiss. Mwah, mwah, mwah. That's what they do in Italy. And they're not douchebags like us. Their parents live with them. All right. Yeah. Therefore, making it easy to expose. Yep. So old. Yep. They kiss. They live in the same house. I could see how that can go crazy. When we're talking about China, when it comes to poor people in China, like in these high rises, people don't understand how a lot of people in China live.
Oh, yeah.
Like right now, you can see this room behind me. This would house, I'm going to go like conservative and say that there'd be 10 people living in this room right now.
I was going to say they would probably separate it in 4 and make 4 separate dwellings. Like, honest to God, I've seen them. Yeah, I've seen them.
You know what I mean? Old, smoking. They're living literally on top of one another, and these are massive populations, right? Yeah. So I don't want to see that comparison anymore. No. But that's how it started. And so what I've been seeing perpetuated since the beginning of this thing is the doomsday. Look where we might go. Doomsday, doomsday, doomsday. We don't get anywhere close. So we're not gonna talk about that anymore. And it's about, it could be 100,000 to 200,000 if we didn't do anything. But we have done something. So let's get that out of there. It's just this constant fear and anxiety that breeds irrationality. And even when you put up something positive, I made a post on my Facebook saying, hey, let's celebrate the fact that our numbers are so low and, we're saving lives with social distancing, yada, yada, yada. Mm-hmm. People don't want to they don't want to do it. They want to go straight down that rabbit hole of just this garbage that people are dying and yada, yada. No one wants the good. Well, sorry, that's a generalization and that's not fair. There are people out there that don't want to celebrate the good and they want to focus on the negativity. And
or maybe they don't want to celebrate the good. Maybe they don't want to focus on the negativity. Maybe their way of coping is just let these people deal with it. I'll do as I'm told, and I'm going to move along with my life. Because to be honest with you,
Right.
for the first week and a bit, that was my jam. I got the call, told I'm working from home. That's it. Okay. What's the rules? Social this, all this. I did nothing. I just sat at home. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to hear about it. I didn't want anything about it. Like,
Right.
because it's hard. It's hard to be positive when there's people dying, and it's tough. But it's just a potential from my perspective that maybe just some folks just don't want to engage, and they
Right.
just, whether it's positive or not, they just don't want to engage, you know?
Yeah. But, you know, it's just, okay, I'm going to go into it just a little bit,
Yeah.
just a little bit, because there are some people, oh, shit. Oh, fuck. Oh, I'm debating right now. There's different levels of buy-in from people around the globe as to what this really is and how serious it may be. And it just blows me away that there are people that have spoken about stuff like this for years that don't have a strong as buy-in with what's happening right now, opposed to people that have just been introduced to what's going on in the last couple of weeks and believe so strongly in what they're told from people that they've never heard from before, I guess. You know what?
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? And I don't even want
That's a
to
tough one.
bring that to conversation,
It's
because
tough.
that really goes somewhere else to where I don't want that to go into. And it really speaks to, like, the World Wide Web, as wonderful as it is, when people have too much information, they just don't know
Yeah.
what to do with it, right? There's too much out there for people to pull from.
Absorb. Yeah.
Right. And to where we really have to just
Yeah.
try to find some focus, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's why people do buy in so strongly to just do what you're told, right? Because that
It's
gives
easier.
them a level, yeah, it's a level of control.
It's easier. Yeah.
It's a level of
One less
control.
thing I have to worry about.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, like, I mean, outside of that, like, so we've done a lot of doom and gloom, and I'd like to finish strong. And I
Okay.
see some things talking about the positives that have come. Like, you know, you were telling me a couple of things in regards to, you know, your interactions with the family,
Yeah.
etc. Tell me about that, because I really want to end this with something positive and a big smile.
Sure. Like, you know, every week it was, you know, my wife works weekends, so, or Tuesday to Saturday, and I'm Monday to Friday. So the only day we're really together as a family for the entirety of it is Sundays. Tradition on her end is to Italian Sunday dinners, right? So it's always with the family, whatever. You know, now Sundays we're all home. She can't go to her parents. She can't do this anymore, you know. So at first, and I'm going to be honest and true, it was like we were forced to be together and have dinner. You know, we're not used to it. I stay home. I would usually watch football on Sundays. It trickles into winter and et cetera, et cetera. We usually play ball on Sundays. So they would just go out, right? And so now we're together. You know, the kids are home with me now, and I work, you know, 7 to 3, and the kids are with me the entire time. So, you know, I'm spending more time with my children than I ever would have, you know, when they're at school or when they're at, and it's, you know, it's eye opening, because I consider the time I spent with them pretty good prior to this. Now, when they go back to school eventually in 2021 or whatever the plan is, like, it's going to be hard. It's going to be tough. And I've really enjoyed the time, and I've got to enjoy my son grow up, right? Like, he's 2 now. He turned 2 in December. He's going to be 3. And I've pretty much got to see his second year of life in its entirety and not missed any of the cool stuff he's all done recently. It's been, you know, these are the good things, and they're as transparent as I can be. They
Right.
forced me to be with them 24/7, and I
Right.
haven't regretted a single second, aside from determining that when this is done, I don't want to be a stay-at-home dad.
Right. And what about the wifey? What about you and the wifey?
You know, it's been great. She would work nights with weekends, so I would never see her. She would get home, she'd be tired, eat dinner, would want to go to bed, right? Like I'm up for 6 something in the morning, go to work, get the kids, I'm with them all night till she gets home. So it like now we're spending time with her when she's at home. You know, we put a show on in the background while we're doing whatever, or we'll, you know, fall asleep on the couch and stuff, just things that weren't happening before. And it's just this
Right.
forced time together has been one of the
Right.
best times that I've had with my family as a whole in its entirety. And
That's
it's
awesome.
been really, really good. And I hope that if anyone else is, you know, going through the same stuff, that they really enjoy this time and take a look. And yeah, there's some bad shit going on, but like there's some really good stuff that's going to come out of this in the future, right? It's going to be
Right.
weird as hell when it's all done. It's going to be
Right.
weird. Nothing's going to be normal anymore. So,
Sure.
but whatever, man. We got to look at the positives to your point, and I think these are some really good stuff that's been coming out of it, man.
Yeah, you know what? It's been tough on me, you know, being solo. That's the whole thing. There's people coming from so many different walks of life. Everyone's
Yeah,
different. This affects everyone differently. I'm also self-employed, right?
yeah,
As we touched on. So, you know, my financial certainty is not as strong as yours.
yeah,
Um, and for sure, sometimes, and I hate to say it, is that, you know, I let my brain space sometimes get toxic.
yep,
And it's being able to control the things that you can and understand the things that you can't, right? That's an awful paraphrase.
yep,
But it's so true, right? And so the fact that it seems like there's so much control that has been taken from me sometimes that it makes me incredibly uncomfortable, where other people don't necessarily feel any different. And you know what you said in regards to spending time with the family, and being able to pull some positive from something that can be generally negative,
yeah,
is a gentleman who had made a post about losing his father to cancer. And it really made me change my view on cancer. My mother passed away from cancer 3 years ago, and people will say, fuck cancer, right? And I used to think about how difficult it would be if I ever got a phone call and someone just said, you know, your mom died and she was hit by a bus or had a heart attack or whatever it might be, right? Something just like that,
instant, yeah,
opposed to the fact that his father being diagnosed with cancer, and even though he suffered a little bit, the father, is that he was able to spend time with his dad and take care of his dad and do all the things that his father had done for him when he was a child, right?
yeah,
And I'm so grateful that I knew that my mother only had so much time, to where I got to make the most of that time. And where both me and my sister really showed up for my mother, to where I'm certain, without a shadow of a doubt, that she was so happy in those last 3 weeks, knowing that she raised kids that showed up for her the way that we did, right? And in tragic circumstances, in circumstances that I would never want to be in again, and I would love to not have to live through once if I could erase it, right? But how grateful I am for that time that I got to spend with her, and the good that came out of it. So many amazing things came out of that. I became more spiritual. I can love somebody now that, in a way, I wouldn't be able to love before. I can be there for someone that has lost a parent in a way that I wouldn't have been able to show up before. It's given me greater understanding, greater empathy, to where I think I could even sit here and have this conversation with you without losing my fucking
yeah,
mind. So
yeah.
I'd like to say thank you, because you know we shoot the shit here and there. We've never really sat down and had a conversation at length
I
like
know,
this, right?
I know, I
Uh,
know.
and I'm grateful for that, right? That I'm connecting with people in ways that I have never connected before, and who knows, moving forward, this can make us even better friends. So thank you so much for sitting down and having a conversation with me.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.
Yeah, I think we covered a lot of bases, and I'll say thanks to my sponsor now, because nothing went off the rails. Gallant Media. So they're fantastic. They do web design, graphic design, promo materials, anything print, even though that seems to be going out the window now. Nobody wants to touch anything. But Gallant Media offering some serious pricing right now during some serious times as we all try to navigate and guide our way through this. You be safe, you be well. Kyle, and anyone that's watching, you be safe, you be well, you take care, be well, love simply because you can. Take care, buddy.
Thanks, Jamin.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.